We officially might have less than 24 hours before we see the first Western central bank begin printing their own fiat to buy Bitcoin. That's right. We have a big announcement from a $330 billion giant, which actually might create a lot more follow through as opposed to all of the regions all around the world who have been talking about the potential of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've seen the wishing washing of all these different nations. There's 25 of these different nations all talking about, oh, we might actually create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. But today we might finally see the first central bank to begin printing fiat to buy Bitcoin. They are proposing that their central bank puts 5% of their reserves into Bitcoin. So who are we talking about? Who is this country in Europe that actually has more reserves based on their economy and population size than any other country in the entire world? Well, we today are going to be talking about a very, very interesting region. That region is the Czech Republic, who has already been crowned as the most crypto-friendly city in the entire world. And let's not forget, this region recently, 1 month ago, exempted all Bitcoin and crypto holders from being taxed if they hold their Bitcoin for more than 3 years. That's why I believe this brand new announcement we're going to be breaking down here in a moment holds a little bit more weight behind it than all of the other chitter chatter that we've seen from other regions and nations around the world jumping on this Bitcoin bandwagon. Again, you can see them. There's a ton of countries that have jumped on this Bitcoin bandwagon. The amount of follow through we've seen from these countries so far, not much. El Salvador is really the only country actually putting their reputation on the line and going out there and aggressively buying Bitcoin. Even increasing their daily Bitcoin buy from 1 Bitcoin a day to 10 Bitcoin a day, days after securing an IMF loan, which is even more beautiful to see. But now I want to talk about, will the Czech Republic follow through? Will they finally join El Salvador and leapfrog the other nations who right now just seem to be interested in committing to Bitcoin verbally without actually making and taking action? Well, let's have a look at what's going here. The head of the Czech central bank, that's right, that's the place that prints dollars and prints fiat currency. He is now saying that he wants to buy billions of dollars or billions of euros worth of Bitcoin. Now, this is interesting because the Czech central bank has a ton of money. They're squatting on $146 billion worth of reserves. Now, I told you guys that this country, had the most reserves based upon the size of their economy than any other country in the world. Now, let me illustrate that. So the Czech Republic has a GDP of $330 billion. I've got a chart on screen. We can see very clearly. Czech Republic, they're not a small country. 330 billion, sizable, especially considering from a population standpoint, there's not a lot of people in the Czech Republic. Let me just double check that while I've got you. I was going to say a figure somewhere. Oh, there you go, 10 million. Okay, it is 10 million. So they're a country just bigger than El Salvador. They're a very small country, but their GDP is 10 times bigger than El Salvador. And interestingly, their central bank is squatting on $146 billion worth of assets. So nearly half of the country's economy is how many assets they have in their reserve. This is why I think it's very, very interesting that the head of the central bank is saying, yeah, we want to put 5% of our reserves into Bitcoin. Can you see how the dominoes could very quickly shift here? Other bigger nations like America could be looking at this and going, hang on a minute, we've got roughly a $30 trillion GDP. Let's do some quick maths. Let's assume they're in a similar realm as the Czech Republic. They'd have to have around, $15 trillion of reserves. And if they want to match the Czech Republic, they need to put 5% of 15 trillion into Bitcoin. I'm not going to do the math live on air, but that's a lot of Bitcoin. And this again just highlights the fact of how these little nations can really leapfrog. And as All Night Hider in the chat says, game theory, baby. This is game theory. The little guys are going to be the ones who really benefit the most from Bitcoin and leapfrog these big, bloated Western nation states. Let's break down this news in a little bit more detail before we come back to game theory. So we can see the Czech Republic central bank chief wants the country to buy billions of dollars in Bitcoin, as he claims the Trump guys have created a Bitcoin bubble. And now the Czech Republic wants to join the Bitcoin bubble. Okay, I've lost my Forbes article, but there is no need to stress because we're going to take you guys straight to the source. This is the gentleman's name, Ales. Now we're going to move through the key insights of this tweet because there's a couple of really interesting things. So the head of the central bank in the Czech Republic has said that the national bank's goal is price stability. When we took office in July 2022, inflation was 17%. We brought it down to target. We are also diversifying our reserves, gradually increasing gold holdings from 0% to around 5%, and planning for 30% of their reserves in equities. An asset under consideration, I better highlight that in a different color. How about I highlight that line in orange? Not quite Bitcoin orange, but it's orange. Close enough. An asset under consideration is Bitcoin. Oh, now this is where things get really interesting. Bitcoin currently has zero correlation to bonds and is an interesting asset for a large portfolio, worth considering. Right now, it's only at the stage of analysis and discussion. The bank board will decide, and no decision is imminent. However, thoughtful analysis is needed. But this is where, okay, maybe he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. I found this interesting. Let's say a little bit slightly contradictory. That's why I will ask our team on Thursday to further assess Bitcoin's potential role in our reserves. Nothing more, nothing less. So he says there's going to be no decision imminent. But at the same time, he says, Wednesday, today, on Thursday, tomorrow, our board is going to be assessing the potential of Bitcoin tomorrow. Again, some people will say, oh, 24 hours on the thumbnail. Yes, 24 hours. In under 24 hours, we could see the first central bank printing fiat to buy Bitcoin. We could. This is why Bill in the chat says, trade in your government coupons for sats immediately. If you are sitting on government pieces of paper, fun tokens, as some of my friends like to call them, convert those to Bitcoin immediately. If you are looking for somewhere to convert your fun tokens into Bitcoin, I always like to remind you guys about Rhino Bitcoin. Again, if you're new to Bitcoin, you're looking for a place that makes it really easy to buy Bitcoin, sell Bitcoin, and use the Lightning Network, taking advantage of the global Bitcoin network. I always encourage you guys to check out what Rhino is doing. We think they have the slickest user interface in the entire space. You can see the Rhino application on screen right now. Rhino not only is the all-in-one Bitcoin super application, but they're even going to be giving you guys $10 of free Bitcoin. So if you do sign up with Rhino and use a promo code Bitcoin News, one word, you will be given $10 of free Bitcoin by Rhino. Consider it a 2025 New Year's gift. Satwise, there we go. Satwise has checked out Rhino. I would love to get your thoughts, your honest thoughts in the live chat, Satwise, what you think about Rhino. He's signed up and ready to deploy some dry powder to buy some Bitcoin. Now, again, this is, a little bit of urgency does need to be stressed here. You, like Satwise, should be lining up some dry powder to buy some Bitcoin. I highly encourage it because we now have central bankers saying the quiet parts out loud. We have 25 different regions from all around the world talking about strategic Bitcoin reserves. All of this chitter chatter has popped up in the past 2 months alone since Donald Trump took office. All of these nations, all at once, have said, yeah, we need to learn about Bitcoin. We now have central banks in Europe potentially beginning their journey to buying tens of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Again, I don't like to promote urgency too much, but what I will say is that I do strongly believe, it feels like right now, this cycle, this 2024 halving cycle, bull run that we're in right now, feels a little bit different to prior ones. I've been through, this is my third bull run right now. This one does feel a little bit different. Again, it's not just feelings, it's not just my thoughts, it's not just my opinions. I mean, we have lots of data backing it up. We have a supply suffocation. We might talk about coins on exchanges in a minute. We have hash rate hitting all-time highs right now. Something else we haven't even had the chance to, discuss yet. We're going to be discussing that in maybe a video later this afternoon. Nation states around the world are quietly scrambling to mine more Bitcoin. We have the Bitcoin multiplier effect. Quietly but surely hitting new all-time highs for the first time ever. Again, this is all data that's very public. It's available. It's happening. I mean, there's no ifs or buts. We have coins on exchanges reaching 7-year lows. I mean, we have, for example, the world's largest asset manager hosting closed-door meetings where they're openly talking about, yeah, you know what? It's not the worst thing that, a 28% Bitcoin allocation, it's not unreasonable. And meanwhile, despite all of this, Bitcoin hasn't gone mainstream yet. If we check in on the Google Trends for Bitcoin, we can see, yes, we've picked up a little bit off the bottom, but we're not quite at all-time high levels yet. We are moving up, don't get me wrong. We're not at bear market lows anymore, but we are moving up. I want to talk about when I do expect we're going to see this big move up in a moment. I want to quickly check out the chat. Gabriel says that, so is the Central Bank of the Czech Republic proposing to buy 70,000 Bitcoin? He wants to buy it to reserve. I haven't had the chance to run the numbers, but it's a $7 billion proposition. So at a $100,000 roughly Bitcoin price tag, that maths checks out at face. Yeah, that's Gabriel's on the money here. Czech Republic Central Bank is proposing to buy 70,000 Bitcoin. That is, quick maths, about 150 days worth of supply, newly issued Bitcoin supply. Gonzo, gone out of the market. Again, we have 450 Bitcoin mined every day. Somebody fact check those maths. But it's about 150 days worth of supply gone. If just one small central bank of 10 million people does what they are openly proposing to do, This is where I think things get really wonky, guys. Things can really accelerate. I mean, this isn't speculation. This isn't clickbait. This isn't a conspiracy theory. There's no tinfoil hat on this head. All we have is the articles and the headlines of the central banker himself openly saying, yeah, we want to buy billions of euros worth of Bitcoin. Thanks for the comment there in the chat, Gabriel. It's a great point. 70,000 Bitcoin. I always like to put things into perspective for you guys. And that's a lot of perspective. 150 days worth of supply bought by one central banker. It's pretty crazy. Stat-wise, only 11 likes with 62 people here on YouTube. Yeah, let's obliterate that like button. Right now, we have 4,334 of you guys tuning in between Twitter and YouTube. That is an all-time high, so welcome if you are new here. We go live 3 times a week. We bring you interviews with some of the most prominent Bitcoiners in the space. If you like Bitcoin content, again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want the content, if you don't want the content, if you can't handle my Australian accent ranting, don't subscribe. Unsubscribe if you want to. But again, if you are new here, welcome. Speaking of the interviews we have done, could be a good transition. We had the pleasure of interviewing Michael Saylor, and guess where we did it? It was in the Czech Republic. It was in Prague. It was in 2024. And don't you think it's just a little bit coincidental that all of the countries that Michael Saylor goes to begin really embracing Bitcoin in the months after? Who is he meeting with when he goes on these little world tours that he does do? Again, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but I brought you guys a video this week of Michael Saylor meeting with a French politician. And the reason why I made that video is because I wanted to remind you guys, Michael Saylor made a secret trip to Brazil in 2024, mid-2024, when the secret source came out that Michael did go to Brazil. What we saw was some interesting things come out of Brazil. Michael eventually tweeted this video after it was known that he was in Brazil. It's an hour 10. It's an hour-long video. Again, I recommend watching it. There's no such thing as too many Michael Saylor videos. But Michael himself on his Twitter account said, recently I traveled to Brazil to discuss Bitcoin with a wide variety of investors, executives, bankers, and policymakers and journalists. Here I cover MicroStrategy, digital assets, and the institutional adoption of Bitcoin around the world. So again, look at the date of all this. This is April 2024. Some people were calling it a secret trip. Michael Saylor's secret trip to Brazil. And what happened in Brazil in 2024? Can anyone beat me to the punch? Brazil has made one of the more promising strategic Bitcoin reserve announcements. They, like the Czech Republic, actually put a little bit more skin in the game. And they said, sorry, my throat is gone on me. They said, we're considering putting 5% of our reserves, our international foreign reserves, into Bitcoin. And again, this is the largest economy in South America. Brazil isn't, again, a lot of people think, oh, Brazil's just this lawless country. Now, again, don't get me wrong. I've lived in Brazil for 3 months. It's a little bit lawless. It is a little bit crazy. But they're not necessarily this, a lot of people don't really remember the fact that Brazil's huge. Brazil is a big economy. They're the largest economy in Latin America. Even if you have a look at them in a global stand-in, they're in the top 20. We can see they have a GDP of 2.17 trillion. Let's compare that to France. Again, France is a G7 nation. They are a well-known superpower. Everybody knows this. G7 nation, France, blah, 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 blah. I mean, a lot of people say they kickstarted the world that we're living in today in the 1770s with the French Revolution that occurred in the same decade as the Declaration of Independence in America. France is a very important country for the modern era. They've got a $3 trillion GDP. Brazil, a country that a lot of people just think is a lawless country, it's so far away, it's easy to forget about. Well, they've got a $2.2 trillion GDP. So the fact that Brazil is talking about putting 5% of their reserves into Bitcoin, I think it's massive. It is absolutely huge that we have so much adoption from the big boys, the big nation states. And it is these announcements from the bigger nation states like Brazil and the Czech Republic today that I think is going to put a lot of pressure on this long list of countries who are talking a big game, but they're not quite yet walking the walk, like El Salvador. So that's what we want to see. We want to see some countries walk the walk. Again, I want you to take a look at this list and tell me what you see about this list. Well, I think it's fascinating that in this list, there's not a lot of European countries, don't you think? Something that really stands out to me. Have a look at the list. Argentina, Brazil, all right. We got countries in South America. Central Africa Republic, all right. Countries in Africa. We got Russia, Panama, Central America, Nigeria. Again, you got a couple of countries there in Africa. So that continent's got their foot in the door, so to say. Then you got Turkey. You've got Saudi Arabia. We got a little bit of Middle Eastern FOMO. I love a little bit of Middle Eastern FOMO. The oil giants are getting into Bitcoin. Then you got a little bit of Asian FOMO as well. We got South Korea. We got Singapore. I believe I did see Japan on this list as well. Not a whole lot of European countries. That's just an interesting tidbit that I think I've noticed. And when we really start looking at the Bitcoin nation state hash race, I think we're going to be able to draw some interesting conclusions of why we don't have many of these European people putting their hand up and European countries saying, yeah, we want to embrace Bitcoin. Does that have anything to do with the Davos meeting that happens in Switzerland, Europe? Literally happened last week, which is turning into a little bit of a Bitcoin conference. Those are a couple of the things that I do want to talk about here in a moment. Before we get there, I did mention Bitcoin mining. I did mention the Bitcoin mining hash race that I think is going on globally. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the biggest Bitcoin mining conferences in the entire world is happening in under 60 days in Florida. Again, one of the easiest regions to travel to is Florida International Airport. So if you don't have your ticket to Mining Disrupt going down on March 25, 26, and 27th at the Broward Convention Center in Florida, I'd highly recommend you check out what is happening at Mining Disrupt. We have huge speakers who will be down there in Florida for this event. You can see a few of them on stage. We got Matthew Siegel, BTC Sessions. We've got Dennis Porter. We have some really big names. Senator Ted Cruz might even be there. Again, this is going to be your chance to connect with thousands of industry pioneers and enthusiasts and explore everything that's happening recently in the Bitcoin space. It's going to be massive. It's going to be big. This is the premier Bitcoin mining conference and expo in the entire world. And again, I don't want you guys to wait. I don't want you guys to watch the future unfold. I always encourage you guys, be a part of it, secure your spot. at Bitcoin Mining Disrupt 2025. I'm a little bit happy to let you guys know that you will be able to get 20% off your tickets if you use a promo code Bitcoin News. So check out the link we have for you guys in the description of today's video. Special link for you guys to check out. So check out Eventbrite and check out Mining Disrupt. Just make sure you use that promo code to get your discount. This could even be a conference that I try my best to attend. So let's talk more about what Satwise has said in the chat here, because he makes a really, really important point. Price follows hash. Very true. Great observation. The Bitcoin price normally follows the hash rate, and it did for around 12 years. I will also want to explore Gabriel's comment here in a moment. But first, let's really explore why price follows hash. Because I think it's an interesting rabbit hole that maybe we haven't hit on too long here in the channel. So until about 2022, there were some really interesting signs that were nearly rules in the Bitcoin space. So the Bitcoin price used to just follow the hash rate. So if we saw a bull market in the Bitcoin price, we would see a bull market in the Bitcoin hash rate. If we saw a bear market in the Bitcoin price, we would see a bear market in the Bitcoin hash rate. But I think that the image that I have on screen right now kind of explains why things are potentially a little bit different. Now, this image is looking at the big nation states and their Bitcoin mining operations. Now, the ones we're looking at here is obviously El Salvador. We're looking at Bhutan. We're looking at the UAE. We're looking at some very interesting players here who have all really already sunk into the Bitcoin space. They have put everything on the line. They have been aggressively buying Bitcoin. Now, I think it was the entrance of a lot of these players that really was the demarcation point or the inflection point that really changed everything for Bitcoin. When they entered the space, I think this is when the correlation between the Bitcoin price and the Bitcoin hash rate really broke down. And again, this is not opinion. It's really not opinion. I promise it's not opinion. It's facts. I'm going to show you guys the chart. We do have the chart. I'm always going to show you guys as many charts as I can in these live streams. Because not only did the hash rate and this hash rate price relationship broke down in 2022, we saw some other relationships break down in 2022 that I think is really interesting. So here's one of the charts I want to show you guys. I have some nice red boxes showing us what we need to be looking at. We used to see the number of Bitcoin on exchanges aggressively rise in the year after a bull market. Naturally, this makes a lot of sense, right? When the price increases from $10 to $1,000 like it did in 2013, it's very natural that in the 2014-2015 bear market, you see 800,000 Bitcoin sent to exchanges like we did. That's the first red box on the left-hand side of this chart that I want to show you guys. Second red box, very natural when the price of Bitcoin rises from $1,000 to $20,000 like it did in 2017, that you see a lot of coins sent to exchanges in a pretty aggressive manner like we did in 2018. where we saw 900,000 Bitcoins sent to exchanges. Now, wouldn't you think, based upon this trend, that a lot of Bitcoin would get sent to exchanges in 2022? I mean, the Bitcoin price saw a significant markup. Bitcoin price got marked up from $5,000 to $10,000 to $70,000, and today it's at $100,000. I mean, surely we'd see a lot of Bitcoin sent to exchanges, right? People cashing in for some fiat profits. Surely. Well, I've tried to make it as big as possible here on the chart. It's not what we're seeing. We're actually seeing a decrease of, at the time of recording, 1 million coins leaving the exchanges since 2020. So we saw 800,000 Bitcoins sent to exchanges in 2015, nearly 1 million. We saw 900,000 coins sent to exchanges in 2018. So nearly every bull run, we're seeing roughly about 1 million coins sent to exchanges. Again, nothing, it's not perfect maths here. And then what happened? We've seen 1 million coins leave the exchanges in this most recent price run-up. Bitcoin's at 100,000. Yes, some long-term sellers are selling some coins, like they do every bull run. But this time, the buyer in the Bitcoin space is different. This time, the ETFs squatting on 1 million coins. Public corporations. I mean, Michael Saylor alone is squatting on nearly 500,000 coins. So again, maybe there's a little bit of data that things are different. And again, here's the chart I promised you guys. This is the Bitcoin price and the hash rate. I apologize for taking so long to bring this up. But what you can see is we used to see these big drawdowns in the hash rate when we'd see bear markets. But all of this kind of changed post 2021. You can see right here, I'm trying to make it as obvious as possible. This is where we saw the China Bitcoin mining ban. This yellow line, it doesn't look like it took a massive crash, but that's a 60% correction in the hash rate in a matter of not long. It happened pretty rapidly. Oh, I like this chart. Change it to log. It's pretty cool. Doesn't really highlight the drawdown in the hash rate as much as you do see in linear. Really like this chart. It's cool. But what we have seen is the yellow line aggressively rally since 2021. And what I think is interesting is the yellow line was at 87 exahashes in 2021. Today, we're over 800. So it's more than 10x increased. So the hash rate is up by 10x. Meanwhile, the price is only up by 30%, not even 2x since 2021. So that is the breakdown of the relationship that we have seen between the Bitcoin price and the Bitcoin hash rate. It's broken down. And I all think it has to do with these nation states getting into the Bitcoin game. I don't think the Czech Republic's going to be the last. Again, they're a $330 billion giant who's openly saying, yeah, we want to buy some Bitcoin. Their head of the central bank is saying that they want to buy billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. It's pretty crazy. I would love to ask the 6,665 of you guys. Oh, nearly got the quadruple sixes. I want to ask you guys, what do you think about the Czech Republic Central Bank saying the things that they are saying about Bitcoin today? Is this going to create a little bit of a domino effect? Are we going to see more of these European countries say, yeah, you know what? Maybe we want to buy some Bitcoin too. Again, I think it's only inevitable. Everybody is going to have to buy some Bitcoin one day. Everybody's going to have to learn about Bitcoin one day. It's coming. If you do want to learn about Bitcoin, again, I'd encourage you guys to check out the Mining Disrupt conference happening in Florida. The link in the description is working. It's live. It's functional right now. I fixed that in the background very quickly for you guys. So check it out in the live stream and in the description of today's show. And if you are looking for somewhere to buy some Bitcoin, we always encourage you guys to check out what Rhino Bitcoin is doing. We think they're the all-in-one Bitcoin super app. There are so many comments in this chat. I'm going to try to hit a few of these before we round this thing out. All Night Hider even put the link to Rhino Bitcoin in the chat for you guys. And Satwise even said it was a slick app. All right, well, there you go. Greetings, Johnny Midas, the man who's never missed a live stream. Yeah, I recommend everyone go and get their hands on Larry Lepard's book. Larry's just a great thinker. I like how he thinks about things. Friend of the show. We've had him on once. I'm going to try my best to try to get to the Bitcoin conference in Miami to catch up with Bill. That would be great. I'd love to get to Vegas. I really need to solve my visa issues. So here we go. Gabriel, I promised to come back to this question. I'm back. Here we go. Let's have a look at this. The Czech National Bank holds $146 billion of reserves. 20% of that is stocks. They want to try to hold 100 tons of gold. They want to increase their stock holdings from 20% to 30%. And 5% of their reserves would equal a 71,000 Bitcoin heavy stack. There we go. Gabriel's done the maths. I'd encourage the 6,900 of you guys on this live stream between Twitter and YouTube to subscribe to the channel, but I'd encourage you to subscribe to Gabriel's channel. He's got the maths. I love it. Thanks for sharing, Gabriel. And thanks to everyone who tuned in to this stream. If you are going to the Mining Disrupt conference, hit up Rob. There looks to be a little bit of chatter in the live chat of people trying to organize accommodation for the conference. Go and meet some Bitcoiners. Meeting Bitcoiners is an incredible experience. It's great fun. I love conferences every time I go to them. It's why I travel to so many of them. I don't know where the next one is going to be that I'm going to go to. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the chat. What is the next best conference to go to? The Bitcoin conference is happening in Vegas very, very soon. That's going to be massive. What kind of announcements are we going to see? What kind of announcements are we going to see at Mining Disrupt? Could see some big ones. Dennis Porter's there. Who knows? Maybe we're going to see more states in America actually look at what the Central Bank of the Czech Republic is talking about maybe doing tomorrow on Thursday. Again, this is happening tomorrow, Thursday. They're discussing Bitcoin. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. Could they be printing fiat to buy Bitcoin tomorrow? Maybe. So I used a question mark in today's YouTube title. We're going to have to stay tuned. To the 7,000 people tuning into this live stream between Twitter and YouTube, I'll say thank you for your time. I'm going to try to keep this live stream short and sweet. I'm going to keep it under 40 minutes. I'm going to close this one out here. And all I'm going to say is enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. You're going to see us in another live stream tomorrow.